You've just turned off the light and settled into a familiar dip in your mattress. Your head sinks into a softness that conforms, almost perfectly, to the shape of your skull. This isn't just comfort. It's an engineered surrender. Your shoulders relax, your spine aligns, and the world outside that dark room fades away. Because of layers of foam, springs, and fabric working in silent agreement. This is your nightly ritual of safety. But for 99.9% of human history, this ritual did not exist. Your ancestors, for hundreds of thousands of years, did not have this. They did not have a mattress. They did not have a pillow. They did not have a room with a lock on the door. When darkness fell, they faced a profound and dangerous vulnerability. The act of closing your eyes for hours, of becoming unconscious and immobile, was not a gentle segue into dreams. It was, for most of our story, the single most perilous thing you did every single day. Think about that for a second. You are defenseless when you sleep. Your hearing dulls. Your sight vanishes. Your reaction time is measured in the slow, groggy crawl out of a deep sleep cycle. In the modern world, the worst that usually happens is a stiff neck. But in the ancient world, that vulnerability had immediate and lethal consequences. Predators hunted most actively at night. Rival humans could approach under cover of darkness. The temperature could plummet, stealing the body's precious warmth. A child could roll into an unseen fire. Sleep was a necessary biological gamble. And for most of our species' timeline, the house odds were terrible. This is the problem your body's sleep systems evolved to solve. The craving for that perfect mattress dip, the way you plump your pillow just so, the precise darkness and quiet you might insist on. These aren't just preferences. They are the echoes of an ancient survival architecture. Your brain and body don't just want sleep. They demand safe sleep. And the definition of safe was written in blood, in fear, and in cold over hundreds of millennia on open ground. So how did they do it? How did ancient humans, without beds, without walls, without any of our cocoons of security, manage to sleep at all? And more importantly, how did they sleep well enough, safely enough, for you to be here today? If even one of your direct ancestors had failed to solve this nightly puzzle, their line would have ended in the dark. This is a story of invisible engineering, of biological hacks, and of a quiet revolution that began not with a mattress, but with a layer of grass. We have to start by dismantling a modern assumption. We tend to think of a good night's sleep as a long, unbroken, 8-hour stretch of unconsciousness. We see waking up in the middle of the night as a disorder, a sleep maintenance insomnia, to be corrected. But this monolithic block of sleep is a historical anomaly, a product of perfect safety and artificial darkness. For your ancient ancestors, sleep was almost certainly segmented. It was patchwork. It was vigilant. Researchers who study pre-industrial sleep patterns believe humans naturally gravitated towards what's called biphasic or even polyphasic sleep. The most compelling model is segmented sleep, or first and second sleep. In this pattern, people would sleep for a few hours after dusk, then wake up for an hour or two in the middle of the night. This wakeful period was often used for quiet activities, tending the fire, talking in low voices, storytelling, or even minor tasks. Then, they would fall back asleep until dawn. This wasn't a pathology. It was an adaptation. That period of nighttime wakefulness served as a sentinel shift. In a group, it meant there were almost always some eyes open, some ears alert. It allowed for a check on the surroundings, a reassurance that the children were safe, that the embers were still glowing for warmth. Your own sleep architecture still contains the ruins of this system. That's why you can be jolted from deep sleep by a faint, unfamiliar sound. A creak in the house, a car door outside. Your brain's threat detection centers, the amygdala and related structures, remain partially online even in deep non-REM sleep, primed to trigger an adrenaline surge at any sign of danger. You inherited a night watchman built into your skull. But a sentinel system isn't enough. You still have to physically lie down, and the ground itself is an enemy. It is hard. It is uneven. It steals body heat with terrifying efficiency through conduction. It hides scorpions, spiders, and snakes in its crevices. The first and most fundamental innovation wasn't a bed. It was a barrier. Before comfort came separation. Before softness came insulation. The very earliest evidence we have for humans deliberately modifying their sleeping space points not to cushioning, but to creating a clean, insulated, raised platform off the bare earth. At a site called Sibudu Cave in South Africa, archaeologists have found the earliest known bedding. dating back an almost incomprehensible 77,000 years. And what they found is a masterclass in pragmatic problem-solving. These ancient people weren't just piling up soft leaves. They were building a complex, layered structure. They started with a foundation of thick, compacted stems from a specific local plant, a sedge called Cryptocarya woodii. This plant wasn't chosen at random. Its leaves and stems contained natural insect-repelling chemicals. They were laying down a pest control barrier first. On top of this, they placed layers of softer, leafy material to create a cushioned surface. And crucially, they regularly burned the old bedding layers. The ash layers found between the bedding strata show they would set fire to the used sleeping material, incinerating parasites, lice, and accumulated debris before laying down a fresh green layer. This was housekeeping. This was hygiene. This was a 77,000-year-old protocol for a sanitary sleeping area. This tells us something profound. The drive for a clean, protected sleeping space is deep in our lineage. It predates modern humans, likely stretching back to our common ancestors with Neanderthals. It's a non-negotiable. But the Sibudu bedding is still relatively advanced. It represents a settled, repeated use of a sheltered space. What about before that? What about the hundreds of thousands of years of hominins who were more mobile, who slept in a different spot more often? They weren't carrying sedge stems with them. Their solution had to be portable, immediate, and universal. They used what was everywhere. They used grass. They used leaves. They used pine boughs. In a flash, you can understand the instinct. If you've ever been on a hike and wanted to sit down, you don't sit on a bare rock. You brush away the sharp stones. You might even kick together a small pile of dry needles or grass to sit on. It's an automatic gesture. Now amplify that for sleep. You would gather a much larger pile, creating a nest. This does several things at once. It creates a cushion against the hard ground. It creates a loft of dead air space underneath you, which is a powerful insulator against the cold earth. It raises your body ever so slightly above the ground layer where creepy crawlies move. And by disturbing the ground and using fresh vegetation, you are also clearing away any existing pests or surprises. This sleeping nest is almost certainly the universal prototype for every bed that followed, and you still carry the blueprint for it in your nervous system. The act of fluffing your pillow, of smoothing your sheets, of arranging your blankets just so before you get in, that is a ritualized, modern echo of building your sleeping nest. You are preparing your safe zone. You are creating order and security from chaos. The fact that a poorly made bed with wrinkled sheets or a lumpy pillow can feel so unsettling isn't just about comfort. It's about that ancient protocol being violated. The nest isn't properly prepared. The safety signal isn't fully activated. But there's another enemy beyond hardness and bugs. There's the cold. On a still night, the ground can become colder than the surrounding air. Lying directly on it is like lying on a heat sink. Your body's thermal regulation systems have to work overtime, burning precious calories just to maintain core temperature. This is where another universal, portable technology came in. The fire. Controlled fire didn't just cook food or scare away beasts. It revolutionized sleep. A hearth at the center of a sleeping group did three critical things. First, it provided radiant warmth, directly countering the cold. Second, its light extended the day into the night, pushing back the psychological terror of absolute darkness, and allowing those sentinel wakeful periods to be more productive and less fearful. Third, and perhaps most subtly, it created a social focal point. The sleeping group would arrange themselves around it, often in a circle, with feet towards the warmth. This arrangement wasn't random. It meant everyone was in view of the fire's glow, and by extension, in view of each other. It enforced group cohesion and mutual surveillance during the vulnerable night. The combination of a simple grass nest and a central fire was, for probably 100,000 years, the five-star hotel of human sleep. It addressed the physical threats, but it still left a psychological one. The darkness beyond the firelight was still an abyss, filled with unknown sounds and imagined movements. This is where the final and most biological piece of the puzzle comes in. The group itself. Humans, like many primates, are social sleepers. We almost never sleep truly alone by evolutionary design. Sleeping in a group is a force multiplier for security. More ears are listening. More noses can smell a change in the wind. More eyes can scan the perimeter during those wakeful periods. But it goes deeper than just a rotating watch. The physical presence of other breathing, Warm bodies provides a profound neurological signal of safety. The subtle sounds of regular breathing around you act as a white noise machine, masking smaller, potentially threatening noises, but they also act as a reassurance. All is well. The tribe is present. The pack is safe. This is why sleeping alone in a strange house or in a silent hotel room can feel so unnerving to so many people. It's not just a childish fear. It's your ancient sleep systems receiving zero confirmations of social safety. The nest is physically prepared, but the group signal is absent. Your brain remains on higher alert. Your sleep may be lighter, more fragmented. You are, in a very real sense, sleeping like your ancestors did when they were in a dangerous, unfamiliar place, with one ear open. So we have the picture now: a grass nest, a fire's glow, a circle of trusted bodies. This was the standard suite for millennia. But then, something changed. A shift so significant it would eventually lead you to that mattress. It wasn't a sudden invention of the frame bed. It was a slow change in posture, and what scientists suspect about this shift reveals a hidden cost of our modern comfort, a cost your body is still paying every single night. And for hundreds of thousands of years, that suite worked. The nest, the fire, the group. It was a system of distributed risk, and it got the job done. Your lineage survived the night, but then, gradually, the equation began to change. Humans began to build permanent shelters. They stored food. They domesticated animals. The predators were pushed back from the immediate vicinity of the camp. The night became less about immediate, mortal danger from outside the circle, and more about a different kind of threat, one that came from inside the circle, from the ground itself, and from the very posture of safety. This is where the story takes a counterintuitive turn, because the greatest enemy of your sleep might not have been the saber-toothed cat. It might have been the mat. Let's rewind to that grass nest. When you sleep on a pile of gathered grass, you are not lying flat. The vegetation shifts and compresses under your weight. Your hip and shoulder sink in. Your spine curves naturally. Your head is supported, or it rests on your arm. Animal hides stretch tight on a frame. These were a huge upgrade in cleanliness and portability. But they presented a new problem. They were thin. For the first time, the human body was encountering something widespread. The base of your tongue and the soft tissues of your throat can collapse backwards. This narrows the airway. It can cause snoring. May have accidentally introduced a chronic, low-grade threat to the quality of sleep itself. So how did they cope? The evidence suggests they didn't lie flat at all. Look at any depiction of people sleeping in ancient cultures, from Egyptian tomb paintings to medieval manuscripts. One arm is often tucked under their head. This wasn't just artistic convention. It was physiological necessity. And using your own arm as a pillow, while it might make your hand go numb, but the body can only contort so far. The brain's demand for safe, restorative sleep is non-negotiable. It was about safety from the sleeping surface itself. It was about alignment. It was invented for breathing. The oldest known pillows are not soft. They are stone to elevate the head and neck, keeping the airway open and straight. But the primary driver was likely that unconscious, biological imperative: maintain the airway. The goal was elevation, not cushioning. And this is where we find the twist. Foam. Your head cradled by a lofty pillow. It feels like the pinnacle of comfort. But your airway doesn't agree. The conforming mattress lets your body sink into a position where the diaphragm is compressed. Your body is caught between two worlds. It carries the ancient software, the sentinel wake-ups, the nesting instinct, to a cloud of foam. How do we know ancient humans actually faced this, and that their solutions were deliberate? It's written in the bodies of their living descendants. Take the phenomenon of positional sleep apnea. It's a hardwired, anatomical vulnerability that only expresses itself in a supine position. Isn't a cultural quirk. It's an evolutionary adaptation to a problem that emerged. Researchers observing groups like the Hadza in Tanzania note something profound about their sleep and satisfying within those segments. And critically, they rarely sleep flat. They sleep on the ground, often on simple skins or pads, in curled or side-lying positions. The epidemic of sleep disorders in the modern world, a perception so powerful it can override the very architecture of sleep itself. And the key to that feeling might be the one element of the ancient suite. That glowing hearth in the center of the circle did more than warm skin and ward off beasts. The crackle and pop provided a consistent, masking soundscape. That dome wasn't just physical space, it was psychological territory. Within it, the brain could truly stand down. Your modern bedroom has no fire. It has a thermostat, maybe quietly starving for that dynamic, organic signal of security. You can rest. These are acts of gathering the circle, of creating a perimeter of calm. You are signaling the shift from the exposed day to the protected night. The ultimate signal of safety for a human is not a locked door. Your own steady breath joins the chorus, reinforcing the signal for others. It is a silent conversation of survival, saying, over and over, "We have made it through another day." Listen, what do you hear? The hum of the fridge? The distant sigh of traffic? Perhaps your own heartbeat in your ear against the pillow. The sentinel is alone at his post. The nest is empty. Something is wrong. You play a podcast or a soundtrack of rainfall. You are, instinctively, trying to replicate the acoustic signature of a safe camp. It is a conversation. That faint anxiety you feel as you lie in the dark, waiting for sleep to take you. When your head rested on your own arm, atop a pile of grass. The fact that you sleep better when your partner is home, these aren't quirks. They are living artifacts. But as the latest iteration in a 77,000-year quest for elevation and airway, feel the mattress not as foam and springs. Your ritual of safety is not a surrender to weakness. Who tended a flame? Who listened into the dark so their children could sleep? It is standing watch in an ancient circle, warmed by a fire long gone. It's that you can close your eyes in the dark at all.